All right, guys, it's about time. So we are going to start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth session of the day. We are going to now talk about VDIs, AVD, WVD, and get some insights into Windows 365 and Cloud PC. My name is Saurabh Sarkar. I'm a M365 service engineer in Microsoft. I have about 9 years of IT experience, and currently I am working mostly on Intune and related technologies. So in this session, we are first going to talk a little bit about what is AVD, what is WVD, what is VDI, why do we need virtualization in general, and then we are going to do a deep dive. When I say deep dive, I mean whatever the time permits. And within that 50-minute session, we are going to talk about Windows 365 and Cloud PC. We have already had one session on Windows 365 earlier in the morning. In case you guys were not able to catch that, I would suggest you guys to check out the recording. But yeah, let's get started. So before I get into Windows 365, let's talk a little bit about VDIs and traditional desktop virtualization. So VDI is a technology which enables us to deliver desktops via virtual machines which are hosted on on-prem. Okay, and this technology has existed since as long as I can remember, at least 15 plus years, right? So you would have heard Citrix virtualization. You would have heard about VMware Horizon. You would have heard about Hyper-V, which provides virtualization from Microsoft. And the end goal in all these cases is the same. And the end goal is, instead of having the end user to purchase a machine, may that be a in this case it would not be a server operating system. In this case it would be a client machine. So instead of leaving it on the end user, what we are doing is we are provisioning a virtual machine to that end user. Now there are many advantages that comes with the provisioning of virtual machines as compared to having a hardware. Obviously a virtual machine can be centrally managed. We don't have to worry about misplacing or stole or the laptops being stolen. And obviously the laptop has a specific amount of warranty and guarantee, right? That is not applicable in case of virtual machines and stuff like that, right? We are already aware about what is the advantage of using a virtualization solution, and I believe at least 99.9%, if not 100% of the organizations out there are using some kind of virtualization or the other. Now they might be using virtualization from different platforms. Like if they are MS dependent, they would be using Hyper-V. If they are VMware dependent, they would be using VMware Horizon. If they are Citrix dependent, they would be using Citrix Synapse or Zendesk. But everybody is using some level of hardware virtualization or the other, right? So this slide talks about what is why exactly a VDI is needed. So virtual desktops are hardware independent, which allows the system administrators to avoid hardware related issues such as finding drivers, replacing the disks and drives and RAMs, and replacing the damage and stuff like that, right? Okay, now this slide talks about Citrix VDI. So before we talk about Windows 365 or Cloud PC, I want to give you guys a 1,000 feet overview of what is a VDI and what is a traditional VDI, because only then we will be understanding the difference between a traditional VDI and Cloud PC. Only then we will understand how Cloud PC is better than rest of them, right? So this slide talks about how exactly a Citrix VDI functions. This is again a high level block diagram. So over here on the left hand side, we have a user device. That user device would have some kind of a Citrix agent installed. Now using that agent, the device is going to communicate to the Citrix infrastructure. Over here, I have a hypervisor, and in that hypervisor, I have installed 4 machines. Okay, VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. Now, one of these virtual machines are provisioned to the end user. Now, apart from the hypervisor, there is something called a delivery controller, which is present in customers infrastructure. This delivery controller actually decides that the connection is going to route to which VM. So think of this as the brain behind making the selection. Now, obviously, if the delivery controller needs to decide which VM the connection is going to be routed to, the delivery controller is going to do that on the basis of a database, right? So the delivery controller is connected to a database, which is going to contain all the information in there in the infrastructure, all the policies created, all the farms that are there, all the virtual machines, the applications and stuff like that, right? And then there is an interface called Director or Studio, which is used to manage the delivery controller. Okay. And then there is a interface called Storefront. Think of it as the kind of a gateway, if you would call it. So the end users reach out to the storefront, and then the session is or the session is redirected to the delivery controller, where delivery controller decides which VM the end user is supposed to be routed to, and then a connection is established between the machine and the virtual, between the end user's machine and the virtual machine, right? So we don't need to know all of this. The only thing that is relevant over here is the line at the bottom, which says that all the components in this diagram are managed and reside on on-prem. What I mean by that is, let's say that I am the IT admin, okay, and there is an end user. Now that end user wants to access a virtual machine. That virtual machine is present in this hypervisor, right? So what is it that I as an admin need to do so that this user is able to access the virtual machine? There is something that I will have to do right beforehand. Well, I will have to create a hypervisor. I will have to create 4 virtual machines. I will have to create a storefront. I will have to create a delivery controller. I will have to create a database and populate it. I will have to install the director or the studio. So the point that I'm trying to make here is, the end goal is virtualizing a virtual machine and providing the end user access to it, right? That is the end goal. But in order to achieve this, the admin has to do a lot of tasks, right? So I as an admin will have to set up all the components that are there in our screen, right? So these are all managed and taken care by the admin. So from the user point of view, everything is streamlined. He just goes to a URL. That URL takes him to the storefront. That storefront takes him to the delivery controller, and then that session is established. But from an admin point of view, there is a lot of overhead, right? Now, this is not just all the overhead. Now, it's okay. I mean, it was a one-time thing that I set this up, but then the hypervisor needs to be patched from time to time. The VMs needs to be patched from time to time. The delivery controller needs to be patched from time to time. The storefront needs to be patched from time to time. The database needs to be patched from time to time. The database might have to be upgraded. The hypervisor's version might have to be upgraded, right? So all these admin related tasks are also something that the admin has to take care of, right? And what is the end goal? Well, obviously the end goal is making this user capable of accessing this virtual machine which has been provisioned to him. Okay, this is the background that I wanted to provide you guys, and pretty much the same thing happens in case of VMware VDI as well. So this is a high level block diagram for a VMware VDI, and over here also we see pretty much the same thing. There is this machine. In that machine, the Horizon client is installed. From that machine, the end user goes to the unified gateway. From that gateway, it goes to the Horizon connection server. From that, it goes to the Active Directory, which does the authentication, and then a session is established between the Horizon client, that is the end user's machine, and the VM and the virtual machine which is provisioned to him. But we don't need to all know all of this. The only thing that I know that we need to know is, over here also there are so many components that are present behind the scene in order to make this possible. So in order to make the uh, machine over here talk to the virtual machine which has been published to him, in order to make this possible, there are a whole lot of components that the admin has to set up and then manage, right? The same thing happens in case of Hyper-V as well. We would have known about what Hyper-V is. It's nothing but just a hypervisor that we installed in that we can install in a Windows operating system. And once that is installed, then we can create virtual machines on top of it. right? But more or less the same logic applies there as well. Everything has to be managed by the admin, right? And then the patching and stuff like that has to be done by him from time to time. So this slide is talking about explaining the same thing in detail. We as an admin are responsible for installation, maintenance, and management. This means that maintenance and housing the hardware additional to the virtual machine. What this means is I, as an admin, will have to maintain these virtual machines as well as the hypervisor, as well as the database, as well as all the other components. I'll have to patch it. I'll have to make sure that there is no downtime and stuff like that. Right. As far as the cost is concerned, this requires a significant capital investment, right? Why? Because think of it this way. Let's say that in my organization, I have just one user, okay, and only one virtual machine. Well, even if there is only one virtual machine, still I'll have to purchase a hypervisor, right? Still, I'll have to set up the delivery controller, which is a different server. Still, I'll have to install the database. Still, I'll have to set up the storefront. Still, there I'll have to make all the configuration using the director or a studio. So no matter whether I have one end user or whether I have 10,000 end user, the the upfront investment cost is there, right? Because buying a hypervisor, buying all these servers and database is not cheap, right? So as far as the cost is concerned, it requires a significant capital expenses upfront. Okay. As far as the control is concerned, we have a full level of control, right? For example, tomorrow, if I want to increase one more virtual machine, right? It is in my hand, right? I can add as many virtual machines as I want to, right? So as far as the control is concerned, we have the extreme level or complete level of control, right? In this or in this setup. And now let's talk about agility. Now, from an agility point of view, it is not that agile. What this means is, let's say that I have got 100 virtual machines created in my hypervisor now. Tomorrow, I want to increase my setup from 100 to 10,000. Is it possible overnight? Well, I don't think so, because if those 100 virtual machines were present in one hypervisor, I will have to purchase 100 different hypervisors now, right? To host 10,000 different virtual machines. And I'll have to set it up. What I mean by that is, I mean, it is not that much scalable and it is not that much agile overnight, right? It requires a lot of upfront investment and lot of upfront task. Okay. So until now we have spoken about traditional VDIs. Now let me introduce you guys to a new concept called DaaS, or desktop as a service. Now desktop as a service is a newer way of doing virtualization, of providing virtual machines to the end users. How is this different from traditional virtualization? Well, it is different in many ways. So DaaS is similar to VDI but it is provided as a managed service from cloud vendors. In case of DaaS, the virtual machines are hosted on managed cloud infrastructure and remotely delivered to the users. So in this case, the VMs will not be present in customer's hypervisor. The VMs will be present in cloud infrastructure's hypervisor. When I say cloud, that cloud can be any cloud, but right now I'm going to stick to Azure. So in case of DaaS, the virtual machines which the end user is going to get, it is not going to present on his on-premise data center's hypervisor. It is going to be present on Azure. Okay. Now these services can be combined with other providers as well and are built on subscription basis. So when I talk about DaaS, there are two things that comes to my mind. One is WVD, AVD, and second is Cloud PC. So I'm going to talk about WVD and AVD and Cloud PC in detail, but before I do that, let me just do a comparison with the similar points. So as far as the platform is concerned, in case of DaaS, the infrastructure is managed for us. Like for example, in case of DaaS, um, um, all the virtual machines are present in Azure's. All the virtual machines are present in Azure's data center, right? Which means that we don't have to manage them. We don't have to patch the Hyper-V. We don't have to patch those virtual machines. As far as the cost is concerned, there is no upfront investment. We don't have to buy the hypervisors. We don't have to buy the database and stuff like that. As far as the control is concerned, well, some control lies with us as an admin. Some control lies with the person who is managing the hypervisor. Okay, which in this case is Microsoft, because Microsoft owns Azure. What are these controls? We are going to talk about that later on. But most importantly, in terms of agility, well, this is highly agile. What I mean by that is, let's say that I have 100 machines today and tomorrow I want to deploy 10,000 machines. It can be done just on couple of clicks. Okay, because well, obviously Microsoft has that scalability in Azure, that they can increase the count of virtual machines and increase the hypervisor on the go or on the fly. Okay, all right. So now let's talk about AVD or WVD. Now AVD or WVD is Windows Virtual Desktop or Azure Virtual Desktop. This is a technology that has existed, I guess, since past 5 or 6 years or so, unless I'm mistaken. And this is to an extent DaaS, but it involves concepts from PaaS as well, that is platform as a service. So think of Windows Virtual Desktop or Azure Virtual Desktop in this way. So if I compare this slide with this slide, so over here in this case, we were seeing that all the components over here were managed by my on-prem admin, right? But now in case of WVD or AVD, all the components are not managed by the IT admin. The components on the left hand side are managed by Microsoft, which in this case you see that the web access, the gateway, the broker, all of these things are managed by Microsoft. And the only thing that the customer or the only thing that we are going to manage from IT endpoint are the desktops, the apps, the user profiles, and obviously our on-premise Azure AD. And the desktops also are not going to be present on my hypervisor or my DC in my data center. The desktops are going to be present in Azure's data center, right? So I don't have to purchase any hypervisor or stuff like that to achieve it. Okay, so the components that are too complex to maintain in a traditional VDI infrastructure like web access, gateway, and broker are maintained by Microsoft as a service. We can do image management as well. The VM serving the desktops, the apps, and the AD and the user profile, these are all managed by the customer in his subscription. The user can connect from wide variety of devices. No inbound ports are needed. The resource is optimized, and the virtual machine supports multi-session. Okay, so the connection happens something like that. So the machine has a remote desktop client. Using that client, first it goes to the Active Directory. The authentication happens in the second step, and then it goes to the web access in third step, and then the web access will forward it to the broker. The broker will provide the list of resources available to the end user. Then it will go to the gateway, and then from gateway he will connect to the desktop. We don't need to know all of this. The only thing that I wanted to let you guys know is in case of WVD or AVD, there is a segregation of resources, and some resources are managed by Microsoft and some resources are managed by the customer. Okay. Now let's talk about Cloud PC or Windows 365. Until now, we have spoken about the traditional VDI where everything was managed by the IT admin. Then we spoke about WVD or AVD where some components were managed by the IT admin and rest was managed by Microsoft. And now we are going to talk about Windows 365 or Cloud PC. So, I mean, the need for Windows 365 or Cloud PC is, well, we already know why this is needed, right? This is needed to establish desktop virtualization. Okay, so I'm just going to skip these slides. I'm just going to come directly to Windows 365 or Cloud PC. And over here, you see that everything is managed by Microsoft except the applications. Well, obviously, the applications will be owned by the IT admin, right? Because, well, the customer is going to decide which application needs to be released and release a newer version of their LOB application and stuff like that, right? And well, obviously, if the customer has an on-premise Active Directory, then the on-premise Active Directory is going to be managed by the customer, right? And then there is a VNet. So this VNet is only needed in some cases. We will talk about that cases later on. But the point that I'm trying to make here is over here, you will see that everything is being managed by Microsoft. okay, except the LOB applications and the on-premise Active Directory, right? So this is a big segregation between what a traditional VDI is and how Cloud PC is fitting into the picture. So over here, Microsoft is doing all the management. Microsoft is taking care of all the patching, patching and hypervisors, creating the VM scalability, agility, platform. They are doing everything from customers IT point of view. All that we have to do is we have to make sure that if there is an on-premise Active Directory, we take care of that. And if there are any LOB applications and stuff like that that needs to be taken care of, we are taking care of that. Okay. All right. So now if I have to talk about Windows 365 or Cloud PC, there are two offerings of Windows 365. One is the business version and the second is the enterprise version. So again, just a reminder, today in the morning session, there was a session which was telling us the difference between business and enterprise. I will give you guys a 1,000 feet overview again, but you guys might want to check out that recording later. So enterprise version is for what I mean, if I have to break it down, I would say that enterprise version is for larger or bigger organizations, because enterprise version integrates enterprise version of Windows 365 or Cloud PC integrates with Intune, meaning you need to have Intune in order to do a Windows 365 enterprise version. However, there is a business version as well. This business version is usually for small to medium sized organization. And in this case, we do not need a on-premise Active Directory in order to survive. Now we have in case of enterprise also, we have released a version wherein we don't need an on-premise Active Directory. We can just do a Azure AD join. But in this case, we will definitely be needing Intune. However, in this case, Intune or Microsoft Endpoint Manager is not needed. All we need to do is we need to assign a relevant license and then it is going to work. So let's talk about Windows 365 Enterprise. So Windows 365 Enterprise requires it has some prerequisites. Okay, we are going to talk about these options later on. For now, let's talk about what Windows 365 Enterprise is. So for us to make use of Windows 365 Enterprise, there are a few prerequisites. The first prerequisite is there needs to be an Intune license. Well, obviously, we will need a global admin. There needs to be an on-premise AD. So in this case, what happens is, in case of Windows 365 Enterprise, again, we have two options. So what happens in this case is a virtual machine is going to be provisioned to the end user, right? And that virtual machine is going to be enrolled to Intune. But there are a lot of things that comes up before. There are a lot of determinations that we have to make before that can happen. Now that end user's machine, which is Intune enrolled, can be Azure AD joined or it can be hybrid Azure AD joined, right? So that is the segregation that I have made over here. It can be Azure AD joined or it can be hybrid Azure AD joined. Now think of it logically. Right now we are saying that the device can be hybrid Azure AD joined. What does hybrid Azure AD join mean? It means that the machine is joined to the Azure AD as well as to the on-prem. But the machine exists where? The machine exists in Azure. As I said, I mean, in the beginning itself, the machine is going to reside in Azure's data center, not in the customer's data center. But if there is a machine which is residing in Azure data center, and if it needs to be joined to the on-premise domain, where is the on-premise domain? The on-premise domain is in my data center, right? It's in my office. It's not in Azure. So how am I going to establish that connectivity between Azure's data center and on-premise data center? There is some way by which I'll have to establish that connectivity, right? Because if that connectivity is not established, then how will a virtual machine which is present in Azure's data center talk to my on-premise domain? Because if it's not able to talk to my on-premise domain, it won't be hybrid Azure AD joined, right? So to achieve that, there are a couple of options available. We can use something called a site-to-site VPN, which establishes that, which setups a VPN between Azure and our on-premise domain controller, or we can set up an express route, or there is an easier way of doing this. The easier way of doing this is creating the domain controller in Azure and using the same VNet in both the places. How that happens, I'm going to talk about that later on. There is a complete step-by-step demo which is going to help you guys set that up. But right now I just wanted to in this slide I just wanted to make that segregation, that if you want to make use of Windows 365 or Cloud PC, you have two options. You can either go with business or enterprise. Business is for smaller organizations who do not have Intune. Enterprise is for bigger organizations who have Intune. And in case of enterprise, you now need to ask yourself whether you want the end machines to be Azure AD joined and Intune enrolled, or whether you want the devices to be hybrid Azure AD joined and Intune enrolled. If the answer is Azure AD joined and Intune enrolled, then you can go with the first option. If the answer is hybrid Azure AD joined, then you will have to set up these things as well. Okay. All right. So we have already spoken about the requirement. Now let's talk about the configuration of the virtual machine. So I said that in this case, what happens is a virtual machine is provided to the end user, right? And that virtual machine is present in Azure's data center. But what is going to be the configuration of that virtual machine? We did not talk about that. So the configuration of the virtual machine is determined by the license that has been assigned to the virtual machine. What I mean by that is, there are a whole bunch of licenses for Windows 365 Enterprise and Business that are present. And you see that it starts with $20 per user per month, and it comes down and goes up to $158 per user per month. And now you see the difference. If I assign a license of $158 per user per month to a specific user, he gets a virtual machine running with Windows 11, and that virtual machine is going to have this configuration. It's going to have a 512 gigs of storage and 32 GB of RAM. If I feel that my end user does not need to have so much of capabilities in his virtual machine, he's just a help desk admin, I can go with the $20 per user per month. Okay. Now the point here that I would like to call out is, this license, when assigned to the user, is paid per license or paid on license basis, meaning it does not matter how much the end user uses his virtual machine, he is not going to be charged more than the cost of this license. Okay. What it means is, in case of if we compare this with AVD or WVD, in that case, the cost was on the usage on the basis of usage, meaning if the user runs the virtual machine 24/7 for 365 days, the cost would be different. If the user runs it just for 1 minute in the entire year, the cost will be different. In this case, it does not matter whether the user is using it for 1 minute or for the entire 365 days. He is going to be charged on the basis of the license only, irrespective of how much he wants to use it. There is a documentation which talks about Cloud PC size recommendation as well, which tells you that which one you should go for which user. But then again, this the IT admin is the best judge. They have to decide what kind of, in on-premise environment also, it was the IT admin who was deciding, right, that which kind of laptop needs to go to which user. Now, the laptop that goes to the CEO of the organization and the laptop that goes to, let's say, a help desk admin or a support admin are not the same, right? The configuration is different. So the IT admin makes that determination and makes that call, right? So similarly over here, the IT admin can use this guide and then make the determination of which kind of license to assign to which kind of user. And that license is going to determine what is going to be the size and what is going to be the size of the virtual machine that is provisioned to him. Okay, so this is what the license looks like. So over here, I have taken a screenshot of the license present in my portal. And over here, you see that the name of the license is Windows 365 Enterprise. And then in the name itself, we are mentioning the capability of the virtual machine that comes with the license. Meaning, if I assign this license to a user, then that user is going to get a virtual machine with 2 vCPUs, 4 GB of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Okay. And then there are Windows 365 business licenses as well, just like enterprise. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the differences between Windows 365 Cloud PC and AVD or WVD. So in case of Windows 365 or Cloud PC, Azure subscription is not mandatory. So Azure subscription is needed only if we want to do a hybrid Azure AD join, because in that case we need to set up a VNet and stuff like that. In case of AVD or WVD, the Azure subscription is mandatory. In case of Windows 365, VNet is not mandatory. If you're doing a Azure AD join, if you're not doing a hybrid Azure AD join, VNet is not needed. However, in this case, VNet is mandatory. In this case, the costing is fixed per license, as I spoke about a couple of slides back. It does not matter how much we are using, how much long we are using it for. We are just paying the cost for the license. In this case, the cost is pay per usage. And in this case, there is no FSIX logics present. In this case, there is. I'm not going to talk about what it is right now. In this case, there is no multi-session hosting. In this case, there is a multi-session hosting. In this case, we are not creating any virtual machines. We are not installing any hypervisors. In this case, we are installing hypervisors. I mean, in this case also, we are not creating hypervisors, but the VMs and stuff like that, that needs to be created by us. And we need to create a host pool. We need to install the FSIX logics and stuff like that. In this, we have an option called hybrid Azure AD join as well as Azure AD join. In this case, it only has Azure AD join. It only has a hybrid Azure AD join. Azure AD join feature is not available as of this moment. Okay, now let's very quickly talk about how to deploy a Windows 365 or Cloud PC, the enterprise version. There are some steps that needs to be followed, right? So if I want my device to be hybrid Azure AD joined, so I have to make some kind of policy, right? Because once the virtual machine is created in Azure, I mean, Azure does not know where your on-premise is, right? Azure does not know how to do a hybrid Azure AD join of your machine, right? It does not know where your on-premise data center is, right? So that configuration and that information has to be provided, and that is provided in Intune, because Windows 365 Enterprise version is all managed via memportal. So in the on-premise setup, we have to obviously set up a domain controller. We have to set up the Azure AD Connect and configure it for hybrid Azure AD join, because that's what we want to do. And then if we want, we can create a separate OU as well for Cloud PCs. If not, then the Cloud PC will be joined to the on-premise domain, because as I said, it's going to be hybrid Azure AD join and it's going to be moved to the default OU. We also have an option of joining the virtual machine to Azure AD instead of joining it to the on-premise AD. And then in the Azure portal, we have to set up the VNet or the express route or the site-to-site VPN. I already spoke about that and the usage of it. And then if we want, we can set up an image as well. That image is going to be used to create the virtual machine by Azure. And then obviously I need to procure licenses and assign it to the user. I need to set up the on-premise network connection. Now this on-premise network connection helps Azure identify where your on-premise domain controller is, because the device is going to be hybrid Azure AD joined only when your device is able to talk to your on-premise domain controller, right? And then we have to make something called a provisioning, Cloud PC provisioning profile, which tells us what image is going to be used, who is going to get the virtual machine and stuff like that. And then we have to assign a Windows 365 license to the end user. Okay. All right, so these are a few configurations which I've taken a screenshot from the portal. So I have to create a resource group, and then in the DNS server, I have to provide the IP address of my on-premise domain controller. Now think of it logically this way. My machine, which is there in Azure, is going to be hybrid Azure AD joined, right? So, and I have set up the VNet or the express route. So my domain, Azure knows where my on-premise domain controller is, but Azure does not know who is the DNS. So how will the name resolution and stuff like that happen? So for that, the IP address of the on-premise DNS server needs to be provided over here. Okay. Now, this is a screenshot that talks about how to create a policy for Windows 365, the provisioning policy. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to go to the MEM portal, and then we have to go to devices, and over there is a section which says that Windows 365. Okay, so from there, first we have to create an on-premise network connection. Over here, What is the significance of this? The significance of this is over here we are telling Azure where exactly my on-premise data center is, because the device has to be hybrid Azure AD join. If we just want to do Azure AD join of the virtual machine, then this step is not needed. And then the second step is uploading a custom image in case I want to upload a custom image, which is going to be used to create the virtual machine, and then have to create a provisioning policy. The provisioning policy determines who is going to get the VM and stuff like that, and then the user settings. Okay. Now this is a screenshot which talks about creating that on-premise network connection. So over here I have to name the network connection, provide a subscription and stuff like that. The network connection obviously is going to reside in the resource group. You can use an existing one or create a new one, and then the connection is going to create involve a VNet as well, right? So over here we can select a VNet, and then we have to set up the site-to-site VPN or express route. Okay, so that the communication is happening between Azure and the on-premise domain controller. Okay. And then when we are creating well, obviously, as I said, that the device is going to be hybrid Azure AD joined, right? Which means that there is a virtual machine which is created in Azure. It is joined to the on-prem domain, right? So if I'm joining a machine to the on-prem domain, there is some place wherein I have to provide the credentials, right? Which is going to be used to join a machine to the on-prem domain. And this is wherein we provide it. So I'm providing the DNS name of my on-premise domain, as well as I'm providing the credentials of a domain admin, and this domain admin account is going to be used to join a machine to the on-premise AD. Okay, and then once that is done, then there is a check that is run. So once I create an on-premise network connection, the Intune portal has something called a watchdog service, and that watchdog service runs a check, and it finds out whether everything that I provided over here is correct or not, whether I have a valid subscription or not, whether the credentials that I have provided even has the access to join a machine to the on-premise domain or not, right? It's going to check all those, and then it's going to tell you whether the checks failed or checks passed. If the checks failed for any reason, this is a hyperlink. You can click on that and it will tell you why it failed. Like in this case, my subscription was not valid, or Azure AD device sync is not created, or stuff like that. If everything goes well, then you will see everything is passed, right? And you can see all the things that the watchdog service has checked over here. And then lastly, we have to make a deployment profile. This is a profile which is going to determine who is going to get the virtual machine and who is not going to get the virtual machine. Okay, and I assign, so over here I'm selecting the image. The image is going to determine what is going to be the operating system that is going to be, whether it's going to be Windows 10, Windows 11, and stuff like that. Windows 10 with OS optimization, Windows 10 with M365 apps, Windows 10 with M365 apps and OS optimization and stuff like that, right? So we are going to select the image, and then we are going to deploy the provisioning profile to a user, right? And that user, if he has the license, he gets access to the virtual machine. We have already spoken about this slide, that when we create an on-premise network connection, the watchdog service kicks in, and the watchdog service runs a list of checks. It makes sure that the Azure AD Connect is configured for hybrid Azure AD join. The IP addresses are all accessible, and the URLs are accessible. And then it gives us a consolidated report and tells you whether everything passed, or if anything failed, it will tell you the reason behind the failure. Okay, now let's talk about the end user experience. The end user experience is pretty much seamless. The end user just needs to go to a URL. He just needs to have internet connectivity, and he can be logging in from a cafe. He can be logging in from his home. He doesn't need to be in the on-premise location. He is accessible over the internet. He just goes to a specific URL. He just enters his username and password, gets authenticated over the internet, and then the virtual machine that was provisioned to him shows up over here. He just has to log into the virtual machine and everything will be good to go. Okay, this is a screenshot of the virtual machine. And then you can see that just when I logged into the virtual machine, Teams is present, Office is present, and everything is good. Okay, there are a lot of changes that has happened since we released the Windows 365. there is a newer or a alternate URL that is present in order to access Windows 365. We have made some changes in the grace period customization. There is a better reporting that is present now. There is a remote connection report that is present. We now support Windows 11 as well. So we now have an option of deploying a Windows 11 image as well. Generation 2 is made mandatory, and then we have support for graphical processing units as well. Okay, over here you can see that there is a, in the image section you can see that Windows 11 is also present. I think this was done in first week of September if I'm not wrong. Okay, now over here you can see that there is a user. That user, when he's going to the end URL, he has a Windows 10 machine as well as he has a Windows 11 machine, right? So if he wants to do something in Windows 10, he can go over there. If he wants to do something in Windows 11, he can go over there. Okay, now I want to talk about something very interesting. Now, if you guys have heard, Windows 11 only works on a machine which has a TPM. Okay, so this is a security change that Microsoft has made. This is a OS requirement that if your machine does not have a TPM chip, you cannot install Windows 11 in it. But let's say that I have a machine which is running on Windows 10. From that machine, I can access a Windows 11 virtual machine which has a TPM in it, right? So I just wanted to call this out because I mean, this is the power of Cloud PC. Using Cloud PC, I am able to use Windows 11 from a machine which is not even Windows 11 compliant, right? So I might have a machine which does not even have TPM, which means that I should not be able to use a Windows 11 machine, right? But then thanks to virtualization and thanks to Cloud PC, that is possible. Okay. All right. So as I said, Windows 11 support for Windows 365 is available. It's available for Windows 365 Business as well. I mean, it is going to be available by the end of November. As of now, it was available only for Windows 365 Enterprise, but we are going to very soon announce it for Windows 365 Business in GA as well. Okay, now let's talk about the features that are not there, but it will be really cool to have them. First is offline mode. So over here, the virtual machine is going to be accessed by the end user, right? And the only thing that the end user needs to have is any kind of device having internet connectivity. But if there is no internet, then he cannot access the virtual machine, right? On the other hand, this virtual machine is a replacement of the physical machine, right? So instead of having the end user to buy a physical machine, we are telling him to use a virtual machine. But the physical machine, for the physical machine, he did not need any internet, right? But for the virtual machine over here, he needs the internet. So it would be really cool to have something like an offline mode, wherein the end user could probably connect to the virtual machine and when he's offline as well, and then make some changes, and then those changes will be replicated when the machine comes online. Again, I'm not exactly sure if this is doable or not. This is just my 2 cents. Second is adding extra disks or storage. So right now in Cloud PC or Windows 365, we don't have an option or ability to add extra storage to the virtual machine. I think it would be really good to have a feature wherein we can add extra storage or extra disks to the machine as per the usage. And third is accessibility to non-enterprise consumer users. So let's say that I'm a consumer, I'm an end user, not affiliated with any organization, and I just want to purchase one license for Windows 365 Business or Windows 365 Business, not obviously for enterprise. So that is not possible. Okay, because the end machine is going to be already joined and stuff like that, right? So it's not available for non-enterprise consumers as of this moment. Now, I just wanted to talk a little bit about ISVs. There are a few ISVs that are present as well. So ISVs are nothing. So these are the ISVs that I'm talking about. So what has happened is Microsoft has partnered with these ISVs and has made the experience a little better. So like, for example, I will give you the example of ServiceNow. So think of it this way. There is an end user. That end user raises a ServiceNow ticket, and in that ticket he is requesting that, okay, you know what, I want a Cloud PC to be assigned to me. Okay, this is the configuration. Now the admin, that ticket gets assigned to somebody. Let's say that the ticket gets assigned to the IT admin. The IT admin just maybe let's say that he just takes one action, and that action triggers a series of action automatically. This is nothing but kind of an automation. So what the IT admin does is he just clicks on yes or no. If he clicks on yes, then automatically the user gets added to a group. And when the user gets added to a group, automatically the license gets assigned to him. And whenever the license gets assigned to him, automatically he gets enabled for Windows 365 Enterprise, right? And well, let's say that we are using the same group for deploying the provisioning profile as well. So obviously when the user got added to the group, and if he had the license, the the virtual machine or the cloud PC is also going to be assigned provisioned to him, right? The point that I'm trying to make is we have integrated with all these ISVs, and these ISVs are working on making some kind of automation so that the IT admin overhead is removed even more, right? The ServiceNow is using some kind of automation runbook or stuff like that. They are just going to automate how the ticket handling is going to work. Okay, and then there is something called M365 Lighthouse. This was also there in preview. So I'm just going to give you a overview. So let's say that I am an IT admin and I'm managing 2 or 3 different customers. Okay. So using M365 Lighthouse, what I can do is it's going to provide me a single pane of glass, and I can look into the 3 or 4 different infrastructures of 3 or 4 different customers from the same interface, which in this case is M365 Lighthouse. And from there, I can take admin actions. So how is this useful? This is useful because if I'm managing if I'm partner for various organizations, if I'm partner for 3 or 4 different tenants, then I can use M365 Lighthouse to manage all of them simultaneously. Okay, it's currently in public preview and it is a free feature. Let's talk about how we can manage a cloud PC. As I said that Windows 365 or a cloud PC enterprise version is enrolled to Intune. And if the device is enrolled to Intune, then we already know how to manage it, right? We can make any kind of device compliance policy from Intune, device configuration policy, we can deploy apps, we can do everything that we want to do, right? In this case, okay? So the apps, device configuration, compliance policy can be all done from MEM. It can be co-managed as well. And we can even do a USB and a printer redirection. Okay. And the support for Graph Explorer is also coming. So for Windows 365 and Cloud PC, our teams are the PG is working on exposing more and more APIs for Graph, the REST APIs. And once they are exposed, then we can make use of Graph Explorer as well to do any kind of automation that we would want to do, right? Okay, things that we need to keep in mind, make sure that we are setting the DNS when we are, so I showed the screenshot, this DNS needs to be set in Azure so that our Azure knows how to resolve any query to my on-premise domain controller. User should be an on-premise user and not cloud only, because we need to be, this is for hybrid Azure AD joined, and make sure that our domain controller and CPC are on the same VNet. If not, then we will have to set up something called site-to-site VPN or an express route. Okay. All right. Now I just want to take 2 or 3 minutes and talk about the evolution. And this surely should blow our mind. Let's just do a recap. Let's just, travel in time to 15 years back. Okay. 15 years back, if somebody joined my organization, well, obviously I am the IT admin. How do I make his IT experience? I mean, how do I make sure that he's productive? I buy a laptop. Okay. I use some kind of, I use OSD, or I have a golden image. I plug in the pen drive and I customize my I use the customized golden image and I image that laptop, right? That takes a couple of hours. Once the laptop is imaged, then I give it to the end user. The end user takes that laptop and then he goes to his office or his desk and he is productive, right? This is how we did it 15 years back, right? I mean, there might be organizations who are still doing it, but this is how we did it 15 years back. Then came Autopilot for physical machines. In case of Autopilot, what we do, we ship the machine directly to the end user. The end user unboxes it, powers it on, logs in, and then he's business ready. The device gets Azure AD joined or hybrid Azure AD joined, Intune enrolled. He gets all the policies from Intune. His operating system even gets upgraded if there is a Windows update ring or stuff like that, and the device is business ready. Okay, so this is how we evolved from using a golden image or having the dependency on the IT admin to image each laptop one by one to a place wherein everything was autopiloted and there was no dependency on the IT admin. Now comes the era of Windows 365 or Cloud PC. In this case, we do not even need to provide that laptop to the end user. We don't even have to buy the laptops. He can use his personal laptop. He must be having a personal laptop, right? He can use that personal laptop only. It doesn't matter what is the configuration of that laptop. That laptop can run with 1 GB of RAM and 512 MB of hard disk. We don't care, right? Well, 512 MB is too less, but and what I meant to say is that laptop can run with any configuration. We are going to provide him a virtual machine. That virtual machine is configuration is going to be determined upon the kind of license that is assigned to him. And all the end user needs is an internet access. And using this internet access, he can access the virtual machine, which is even joined to his on-premise domain. And all of this is automated. There is no user IT, there is no IT intervention, nothing like that. The point that I'm trying to make is I just wanted to take a moment and talk about how we have provisioned from here to here in this 15 years of journey, right? So I mean, gone are the days wherein we will have to go to the IT admin and he will, master image or he will use the golden image. And now we are talking about a scenario wherein we are accessing any virtual machine from any device. When I'm saying any device, it can even be a phone. It can even be an iPhone. He can access a Windows 10 machine even from an iPhone, and that Windows 10 machine is joined to the on-premise domain and is ready on the go. Right. This is the evolution that has happened. These are the resources that I have used for this session. I'm going to provide the resources to you later on the chat. And there are a lot of topics that we have not spoken about, right? We have not spoken about how to create a custom image, how to convert image. We have not done any kind of demo because there is only so much of things that I can do in a 55-minute old session. But if you are interested in knowing all of that, then please go to aka.ms/Intune videos. And over there, I have done a deep dive on AVD, WVD, and Cloud PC. It's a 4-hour old session. And in that session, we are talking about how to set it up, how to set up the entire infrastructure and stuff like that. Now, I just wanted to show you guys one thing before I disconnect. This is a recording.
Saurabh,
that, yep.
In the interest of time, we're already 5 minutes overrunning.
I think the next session is at 1 p.m., right? So we still have 5 minutes.
Yeah, but we need to get the content from Ryan.
I'm sorry?
We need to arrange the content from Ryan. He need to present.
Okay, all right. I'll just wrap it up. So guys, the point that I was trying to make is right now I'm showing you guys a recording, and over here and this is the actual power of Cloud PC. Over here you see that there is a machine. There's a Windows 10 machine, and I'm accessing that Windows 10 machine from an iPhone. I've opened a document. I have made some changes to that document in my iPhone, and when I close that document, when I go back to my actual PC over here, you can see that whatever changes I made in my iPhone, that changes are still present in the machine, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is the machine, the virtual machine that has been made accessible to the end user is accessible from any kind of device. It does not matter whether we have Android, whether we have iOS, or whether we have what kind of device we have. It doesn't matter, and it is accessible over the internet. So I hope guys that this session was helpful in understanding the power of Cloud PC and understanding the power of virtualization and how the advent has happened from having a golden image to having an image over here wherein everything is available on the globe. As I said, if you guys need more information, please go to ak.ms/Intune videos and you will find more information along this. So I hope this has been informative. If there are any questions in the chat, I will answer them now, and I will hand it over for the next presenter.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. That was a nice session.